Almost everything in the human world seems designed for the right hand. Scissors, desks, tools, door handles, even the way many people shake hands. For a left-handed person, none of these things is a disaster. But together, they create a quiet inconvenience that appears again and again. The writing surface is on the wrong side. Fresh ink disappears beneath the hand. A pair of scissors bends the paper instead of cutting it cleanly. The message is subtle, but constant. This world was built for somebody else. So, why does evolution keep producing left-handed people? At first, the answer seems obvious. Perhaps left-handedness is just a recent habit, something copied from a parent, something created by school, culture, or childhood. Or perhaps it is a small biological mistake that evolution has not yet removed. But then the past complicates the story. Long before classrooms, factories, or notebooks, ancient humans were already favoring one hand over the other, and sometimes their bodies preserved the evidence. Imagine an early human gripping a strip of animal hide between their front teeth. One hand pulls the hide tight, the other moves a sharp stone across its surface. Most of the time, the blade cuts the hide. Occasionally, it slips. A tiny scratch appears on the teeth. Thousands of years later, the direction of those scratches can suggest which hand probably controlled the tool. Similar clues appear in worn bones, stone tools, and other traces of repeated movement. Prehistoric hand stencils offer another strange possibility. An ancient person places one hand against a cave wall. With the other, pigment is blown around it. The hand left behind may not be the dominant one. It may be the hand held still while the more skillful hand controls the pigment. No single mark can tell the whole story. Researchers disagree about how confidently some of these clues should be interpreted. But together, they reveal something important. Human-handedness is ancient. The majority has probably favored the right hand for a very long time. And beside that majority, a smaller left-handed group kept returning, generation after generation. That creates the real mystery, because evolution often rewards coordination. Picture a small group shaping stone tools. One person strikes the core. A child watches. Another adult copies the grip. When most people use the same hand, movements are easier to imitate. Tools can be passed from one person to another with fewer adjustments. Shared tasks become more predictable. A common pattern may make cooperation slightly easier. And small advantages repeated across generations can matter. So why did the uncommon pattern survive? The first clue lies inside the brain. The two halves of the human brain are not identical in the way they organize every task. Movement on one side of the body is largely controlled by the opposite hemisphere. For many people, language also relies more heavily on the left side of the brain. Because the left hemisphere controls the right hand, researchers have long explored whether language, gesture, tool use, and right-handedness became connected during human evolution. But then the brain produces another surprise. Left-handed people do not simply have a reversed brain. Many still process language mainly on the left side. Some show stronger involvement from both hemispheres. Others show patterns that are less common among right-handed people. The difference is not a neat mirror image. It is greater variation. That is important because popular culture often turns handedness into a personality test. Left-handed people are sometimes described as naturally more creative, more artistic, more intelligent. The evidence does not support such a simple rule. A hand preference cannot tell you what a person will become. What it does reveal is that the developing brain can organize itself in more than one stable way. And that flexibility begins before a child ever picks up a pencil. Genes influence handedness, but there is no single left-handed switch. Instead, many genetic influences appear to contribute small effects. Development before birth matters. Biology matters. Environment may matter. Chance matters too. This is why handedness can run in families without following a simple pattern. Two right-handed parents can have a left-handed child. Two left-handed parents can have a right-handed child. Even identical twins can prefer different hands. Genes load the dice. They do not always decide how the dice will land. That explains why left-handedness can appear. It still does not explain why it stayed. For that, imagine standing across from an opponent. Perhaps you are fencing. Perhaps you are boxing. Perhaps you are waiting for a tennis serve. Most of your experience comes from facing right-handed people. You know the usual stance. You recognize the angle of the shoulder. You expect the movement to begin from one side. Your reactions have been trained by repetition. Then a left-handed opponent steps forward. The pattern is reversed. The attack comes from the unfamiliar direction. The timing feels slightly wrong. The angle is not where you expected it. You are not confused for long, perhaps only for a fraction of a second. But in direct competition, a fraction of a second can decide what happens next. This is the idea behind the fighting hypothesis. A rare movement pattern may gain an advantage, simply because opponents encounter it less often. The left-handed person does not need to be stronger. They do not need to think faster. Their movements only need to be less familiar. And that creates a strange evolutionary balance. When left-handedness is rare, it may be surprising. Because it is surprising, it may sometimes be useful. But if left-handedness became common, the surprise would fade. Opponents would gain more experience against it. The advantage would shrink. The trait may therefore benefit from remaining uncommon. Researchers call this negative frequency dependent selection. A trait becomes useful partly because few individuals possess it. Evidence from some interactive sports fits this idea. Left-sided competitors can appear more often than expected in activities where opponents react directly to one another under intense time pressure. But the pattern is not universal. It does not appear equally in every sport, and it does not mean every left-handed person has a built-in advantage. Training still matters. Strength still matters. Opportunity still matters. The rules of the activity still matter. The evidence suggests a possibility, not a superpower. For most daily tasks, matching the majority may have been easier. During some direct contests, being different may have helped. One pressure rewarded coordination. Another may have protected surprise. Picture two ancient people learning the same task. The right-handed learner easily copies most of the movements around them. Shared tools feel natural. The group moves in familiar patterns. The left-handed learner must constantly adjust. That cost may be small, but it appears again and again. Now place those same people in sudden conflict. The movement that seemed inconvenient during cooperation becomes unfamiliar to an opponent. For one brief moment, the disadvantage changes sides. It is an elegant explanation, perhaps too elegant, because scientists are not certain that fighting alone preserved left-handedness. Studies of sports, traditional societies, genetics, and brain development do not point to one simple cause. Human-handedness may be the result of several forces pulling in different directions. Cooperation favored sameness. Competition may sometimes have favored rarity. Development introduced variation. Genetics helped preserve it. Culture shaped how it was expressed. The answer may not be one ancient event. It may be a long-running balance, and that balance reveals something larger about evolution. Evolution is often imagined as a judge. One design wins. Every weaker alternative disappears. But nature does not always choose a single perfect solution. Sometimes the value of a strategy depends on what everyone else is doing. Being predictable can help people cooperate. Being unpredictable can help someone compete. Matching the group can make tools easier to share. Moving differently can make a person harder to anticipate. Neither strategy has to eliminate the other. They can survive together. One becomes common, the other remains rare, and each helps shape the value of the other. That may be why left-handedness still feels like a mismatch in the modern world. The inconvenience is real. Many objects were designed around the majority, but the minority itself may not be an unfinished mistake. It may be the visible trace of an old evolutionary compromise. A compromise between cooperation and surprise, between copying others and moving differently, between the efficiency of the familiar and the occasional power of the unexpected. So the next time a left-handed person twists awkwardly at a desk, smears fresh ink across a page, or reaches for a tool built the wrong way around, the scene may appear to tell a simple story. One person does not fit the design, but the deeper story may be the opposite. For thousands of generations, fitting the common pattern probably helped humans work together, and every so often. Moving from the uncommon side may have made someone more difficult to predict. Perhaps evolution did not fail to eliminate left-handedness. Perhaps being different was occasionally useful enough that it never could.